Good morning. Come on, Texas. Good morning. Oh my God, it's so good to see y'all's faces. This is like a homecoming for me. I lived in Texas for a long time. I met my wife down in Waco, not at the compound. And my son was born just down the road in Fort Worth, so this is great to be back with you. And my wife called me this morning. My wife's name is Lisa. I met her 25 years ago, and we've been married a long time. And I do everything this woman tells me to do because I'm afraid she might leave. Oh, I'm married way, way, way over my head. And she called me first thing this morning, 5:30, the phone rang. I answered the phone, and Lisa's on the other end of the line, and she says, "Good morning, big boy, how are you?" She calls me big boy. And I like it. She said, "Good morning, big boy, how are you?" I said, "I'm good." She said, "You know what today is?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, I do." She said, "You've got the best of the best. You've got the Texas Builders." I said, "I know." She said, "You know what I want from you?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, I do." She said, "I want you to be amazing. Give them everything you've got. Leave it all on the stage. Make sure your zipper's up before you get on the platform." It's happened. And the very last thing my bride says to me, the very last thing Lisa says to Kevin is, "Don't forget to smile." She says it for two really powerful reasons. Number one, she knows smiling is the gateway to connecting. We draw people in, we tear down walls and build bridges with a simple smile. The second reason she says it is she knows I have a very poor resting face. She said, "Baby, you scare people, you know that, right?" She said, "You don't look like the speaker, you look like security." The other day she told me I look like the Wolverine. I said, "You mean I look like Hugh Jackman?" She said, "I didn't say anything like that." So listen, so that I can have complete integrity with my bride, if you ever email me, and I hope that you do, if I'm in a heavy travel cycle, Lisa will intercept the email on my behalf. And if she knows that you're part of this family, if she knows that you were in this room today, she's going to ask you one question and one question only. Did he smile? Okay, so what I want to talk to you about this morning. And listen, she's still amazed that I get to do what I do for a living. I asked her the other day, I said, "Babe, in your wildest dreams, did you ever think I would get to do this for a living?" And she thought for a minute, she said, "Babe, in my wildest dreams, you don't even show up." It's not that funny. I want to tell you all a story. In our short time together, you know, one of the things that I always think about before I take the stage is how do you make an impact in a short amount of time? How do we take these fleeting moments that are the lives we live and leave a lasting impression with the people we serve and serve with? I want to tell you a story that changed my life, took me out of a career that I loved very much and brought me to this stage to be with you today. Way back in 2007, I was asked to give a speech. 2,000 people would sit in a ballroom to hear a message from me. And when I met with their committee 3 months before the event, I said, "What can I share with this group that would be valuable to them?" And back then, all I talked about was leadership, vision, communication, customer service, kind of stuff we've all heard at conferences that we've attended. And I'll never forget the committee chairwoman looked at me and she said, "Kevin, we don't want a stock speech. We don't want to hear the same old, same old. We don't want to hear about leadership, vision, communication, or customer service." I got a little bit nervous. I said, "What is it that you want to hear about?" And they said, "We're not entirely sure." I got more nervous. They said, "Here's what we can tell you. The men and women that you're going to be speaking to are hardworking folks. They show up every single day of their lives and they pour the best of themselves into their community, into their organizations. They show up in the wake of disasters, big and small, and help people put their lives back together when they're broken. In fact, a lot of our customers consider this group to be heroes." And when they said the word heroes, I wrote it down. I circled it. I underlined it. They kept talking, but I didn't hear a lot of what they had to say after they used the word heroes. When they were done, I said, "How about this? What if I give a speech about what it means to be a hero? To bring the best version of yourself to this moment and pour it into the people that you serve and serve with. To be a hero at work and at home." And they said, "Man, if you could do that, that would be brilliant. You would, in fact, be our hero. Thank you so much for agreeing to do that." They got up, they left the room, and I freaked out. There was a small problem. I didn't have a hero speech. I'd never even considered talking about heroes. And I don't know what you do when you freak out, but when I freak out, I go to my inner circle. The people who know me, love me, support me unconditionally. I went to my inner circle and I asked both of them this question. That was slightly judgmental on your part. Okay, technically, two people, it's not a circle, I get it. I have an inner triangle, that's what I have. One of the members is my wife, Lisa. Lisa has a way of calming me down, centering me, getting me to focus on what I need to think about. I went to her, I said, "Babe, listen, I've got 3 months to get ready for 2,000 people. They want me to talk about heroes, and I don't have a hero speech." And she said, "Sweetheart, you're overthinking this like you always do." Any overthinkers in the room? Oh, come on, I know better. Oh yeah, I can go from 0 to freaked out that fast, and she knows it. She took me by the hands and she said, babe, listen, when you're blessed to be on that stage, when you're blessed to be with those people, just tell them your story. Tell them about your life. Everyone can learn from failure, poor decisions, and bad judgment. As she got up to leave, she kissed me on the cheek and she said, besides, honey, everybody feels better about their life once they've heard about yours. I still love her, but she's no longer part of my inner circle. It's just me and my dad now. But I couldn't get that sweet voice out of my head. I kept hearing those words, just tell your story. You all understand we're just a collection of stories. We show up every single day of our lives and we pen a new chapter in the story of our life. We help the people that we serve and serve with pen a new chapter in the story of their life. I'm a brand guy, I'm a corporate storyteller, I get it. But I didn't understand how my story helped me talk about heroes. I went back to her and I said, Lisa, you're gonna have to break it down for me because I don't get it. How does my life have anything to do with heroes? And she said, let me put it to you this way. When you look in that mirror, do you see yourself? Or do you see all of the people who helped you become you? Do you see the people who helped you when you couldn't help yourself? Do you see the people who picked you up when life knocked you down? How about the ones who loved you when you were unlovable? And believe me, there have been lots of times. She said, if you don't see those faces in the mirror, you're missing the picture completely. She said, you're not a self-made man. You didn't get here by yourself. She said, you're the sum total and the byproduct of every single human being who's ever shown up in your life. Some for a minute and some for a lifetime. People who moved through this little space called now and left you better than they found you. She said, you want to talk about heroes, Mr. Brown? Start there. I told you she's a smart woman. I went to the mirror and I stared at myself for an uncomfortable amount of time. And after a while, my image began to fade. I started to see the faces of all of the influencers in my life, the preachers and teachers, friends, family, colleagues, and strangers alike. People who had shown up in my life and took me places I could have never gotten to on my own. I went back to my yellow pad. I got a clean sheet. I wrote one question across the top. One question has dominated my life for more than a decade. Here's the question. What does a hero look like? How do we define this word that we hear so much about in today's world? What does it mean to truly be a hero to the people you serve and serve with? I've asked thousands of people that one question. But as I sat there that day, the very first thing I thought about was our military men and women. Men and women who put on the uniform and they go to work for this amount of money to keep you and me safe, to keep us free in the greatest nation on planet Earth. I live in airports most of the time. 200 days a year I'm in airports, and I see men and women in uniform move through airports like vapors, invisible to the people they serve, and I think that's tragic, don't you? Oh, I've got a great friend of mine. His name's Chad. Longtime buddy of mine. He's like a brother. He's also married to a wonderful lady named Lisa. Makes it real easy for me and Chad. It's Lisa and Lisa. We can't mess that up. Chad's Lisa, the most patriotic human being I've ever known in my life. She sees a man or woman in uniform, she is going to love them, hug them, thank them, and buy them food if we're anywhere near it. Any Friday night that I'm in town, the four of us go out for dinner. We're sitting in a Cracker Barrel one Friday night because we're big spenders and that's where we take our girls. We're having a great time, we're laughing, catching up on the week, and sure enough, through the door comes a guy wearing fatigues. The three of us look at each other and just grin. We've seen this movie before, we know how it ends. Sure enough, hostess sits this guy 2 tables over from us. Chad's Lisa's on the move. She goes over and sits down across from this guy and freaks him out completely. This guy starts to push back from the table. She reaches across the table, grabs his hands and pulls him close. And she says, sir, I want to thank you for your service to our country. I want to thank you for what you do for me and my family, and you don't even know who we are. I want to thank you for keeping my boys safe. I have 2 of them. I want to thank you for keeping my dogs safe. I have 2 of them, Shelties. I want to thank you for keeping my husband safe. I have just 1 of those. And it's always in that order. The boys, the dogs, Chad. This guy's wide-eyed and speechless. He doesn't know what to do with it. And she tops it off with this. She said, sir, it would be my honor and my privilege to pay for your meal tonight as a small token of appreciation for what you do for me and my family. This guy had all he could handle. He let go of her hands and he pushed himself back and he said, oh, ma'am, I'm not in the military. I've just been out hunting. Funniest thing I have ever seen in my life. We lost it. We fell out right there in the Cracker Barrel. Lisa turned 3 shades of red, came back over to the table, and we did what any good group of friends would do. We beat it into the ground for like 30 minutes. We wore it out. We did the voice and everything. Oh, ma'am, I'm not in the military. I've just been out hunting. After about 30 minutes, we knew it wasn't going to be a good night for Chad if we didn't knock it off. And I'll never forget, he looked at his bride and he said something powerful. He looked at his Lisa and he said, baby, you can never go wrong doing the right thing. You can never go wrong doing the right thing, treating somebody with kindness and respect, not because there's something in it for us, but by virtue of their status as a human being, they've already earned it. You see, friends, it seems to me we've moved to a place in our world today where everything's a condition. Everything's a transaction, a negotiation. I'll do this for you. If you do this for me, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. You can never go wrong doing the right thing. So what? We bought a hunter his meal that night. Big deal. In fact, if you're ever down our way, throw on some hunting clothes and we'll meet you at the Cracker Barrel. I went back to my list and that one question, begging for an answer, what does a hero look like? It's when I started asking anybody who would listen. I've asked thousands of people around the world that one question. I've heard about the world changers, Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa. Our first responders, our police, our fire, our EMTs. Doctors and nurses, the healers who put us back together when we're broken. I heard about moms and dads, teachers and coaches. I heard about the iconic brands of our day, companies like Southwest Airlines, Apple, Zappos, Amazon, Disney. Companies who come along and they defy comparison, they defy commodity. They may have competition, but we don't recognize them. We vote with our dollars over and over again to do business with them. They talked about sports heroes. They spent a lot of time on sports heroes. Man, I heard names like Peyton Manning, Michael Jordan, Serena Williams. Once in a lifetime, once in a generation player who comes along and when they step onto the field, walk onto the court, they play a game that most people are unfamiliar with. And not only do they play at a high level, they elevate the performance of the entire team. And throughout this entire conversation, every single human I've ever talked to and asked the question, what does a hero look like? They've defined heroes as ordinary people who do. It's fascinating that we know the same people. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things. The first time I heard it, I thought, yeah, that makes sense. But I have to tell you, the more I heard it over and over and over again, the more unsettled I became with that answer. You see, I understand why we say it, but one of the things I've learned is that as we get older, we start saying things that don't make sense. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things, it aligns with our humility, but it makes no sense. You see, if you buy into that definition of a hero, you have to first convince yourself that you're ordinary in the first place. I don't think that's how it was drawn up, do you? I don't think for 1 minute that anybody in this room was put here to be ordinary. I don't think for 1 minute anybody was put on this planet to make an ordinary contribution. Yet we run through life saying things like ordinary people doing extraordinary things. The one person I wanted to talk to, the one person I wanted to ask the question, what does a hero look like, was the 10-year-old version of myself. If I could have gotten to that kid and asked him what a hero looks like, guess what he would have said? Hero looks like me. You see, we had a beautiful way of seeing the world when we were kids, didn't we? Not even the sky was the limit when we were kids. And I had heroes when I was a kid. How about you? Anybody have heroes? Oh, I did. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. Oh, I was a kid, but I knew she was something special. And then I grew up and married her. And of all the heroes, I wanted to be Superman. Every little boy wanted to be the Man of Steel. I used to tie a bath towel around my neck, run through the house, jumping off furniture, pretending to fly. It drove my mother crazy. And my wife doesn't like it either. I remember one time I had my cape on. I'm running through the house and I jumped off the couch and I flew 3 feet. Climbed the cabinet next to the refrigerator and I jumped and I flew 5 feet. I had no fear. I went outside, I climbed the tree next to our garage. I got on the roof of the garage, I walked right to the edge. I looked down at the driveway below, I looked out at the big blue sky. I gave the cape a tug. Sometimes you have to trust the cape. I put my arms out, I closed my eyes, I took a deep breath, and I jumped, and I flew straight down. Landed in the driveway, splat. And in one superhuman leap, my mom from the house to the driveway swooped in, picked up her baby boy, dusted me off, checked me for bruises, kissed me right here on the forehead, and then spanked me like I have never been spanked before in my life. And my mom was from the generation of talking spankers. Anybody know these people? I told you not to. It was the only time in her life she had rhythm. And from that moment on, Superman was grounded. And I wanted to talk to that kid. I wanted to ask him one question. When did you forget how to fly? When did you forget that you showed up with talents, gifts, and abilities as unique as your fingerprints? When did you forget that you were put here to make a difference, to leave an impression. You see, I don't know when it happens, folks. We grow up, and the stress and pressures of growing our business, the stress and pressures of living our lives begins to squeeze that kid out of us. Our vision begins to narrow, and we no longer see the world as it can be. Sadly, we start to see it as it is. Oh, I wanted to talk to that kid. You see, when we were kids, we had perfect creativity. When we were kids, there were no problems we couldn't solve. Listen, when I was a kid, we lived for the day when somebody in our neighborhood would buy a washer or dryer. You know why? Say it loud and proud. The box. We wanted the box. Why did we want the box? Right, it wasn't a box. It was anything but a box and everything that we could imagine it to be. A spaceship, a race car, an army fort, a dollhouse for my sister. Oh, we would laugh and play all day long to the heavens and back in a single afternoon. And if we got really lucky, somebody would buy a refrigerator. Jackpot. Now we had a time machine. And then we grow up. We grow up and the box takes on a very different meaning in our lives. The box begins to confine us. We begin to conform to the box. See, the box is nothing more than the policies, programs, procedures, and people that make up your world and mine. Policies, programs, procedures, and people that make up your world and mine. We all have a box that we live and do business in. And you see, what I've learned is that the reason we stop in our tracks and admire certain people, the reason that we dole out our hard-earned money to do business with certain people is because some people have never lost the ability to decorate the box. They show up every single day of their lives, and they splash their uniqueness on that box. They splash their color on that box, and that's why it looks different. And here's what I've learned. We've had the definition of a hero wrong this whole time. You see, heroes are not ordinary people who do extraordinary things. In fact, it's just the opposite. Heroes are extraordinary people who choose not to be ordinary. You see, ordinary is a learned behavior. Ordinary is a choice. Ordinary is a conditioning process. And sadly, far too many people make an ordinary choice every single day of their lives. Far too many moms and dads make an ordinary choice every day. Far too many leaders make an ordinary choice every single day. Extraordinary people choosing not to be ordinary, this changed everything for me. And it's amazing when you become aware of something, you start to see it everywhere you go. Listen, I've been all over the world and I find these people, these extraordinary people who choose not to be ordinary. I've seen them in gas stations and grocery stores, drive-thrus and dry cleaners. And you know the kind of people I'm talking about. You have them on your team. You have them in your life. The go-to people. When the yogurt hits the fan, when times get tough, when we have to deal with a pandemic and keep everybody safe. You know who these people are. And here's what I've learned. Heroes operate at a completely different level. Heroes help people with no strings attached. They create an exceptional experience for the people in their life. They take responsibility for their life. You see, heroes are the first ones to raise their hand and say, what can I do with what I have to create a better outcome? And lastly, heroes see life through the lens of optimism. They see life very differently than everybody else. They don't see life as it is, they see it as it can be. People not as we are, but as we should be. In my book, that spells hero. And if ever there was a time that we needed heroes, I think it's now. And I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you a story that changed my life. Took me out of a career that I loved very much and brought me to this room today. To tell you this story, I need to introduce you to my son. His name is Josh. Now, if you met Josh, he would tell you his name is Josh Brown. He thinks it's hyphenated, all one word. Josh has autism. We've known that since he was a little bitty guy. When Josh was 7 years old, he discovered Walt Disney World. Any Disney fans, by the way? Everybody know what Disney is? Listen, Disney is a magical place. It's magical because when you go there, your money disappears. You understand that's how it works. You go to Disney, eventually everything you own ends up in Orlando, Florida. The mouse is a pickpocket. When Josh was 7 years old, he discovered Walt Disney World. And if you know anything at all about autism, when these kids get something on their brain, it's the only thing that exists in the whole wide world. For 2 years, this kid obsessed about Disney, 24/7, 365. Dad, I want to go to Disney. Dad, please, please, please take me to Disney. We waited until he was 9 years old. We wanted to make sure that he could enjoy the trip and it wasn't so overwhelming for me. I'm not a good vacation taker. I never have been. Vacationing for me was just a reason to work from somewhere other than the office. For years, my wife thought she was married to a laptop computer. Oh, I would come home, family time, staring at a computer screen. Hard lessons to learn, and many never do. Lisa made me sign a metaphorical contract. She said, Dad, I need you for 8 days. I need you to show up and just be a dad. This is the trip of a lifetime for our baby boy. I just need you to be his dad. I signed the metaphorical contract with a simple yes, ma'am. We packed our bags and we made a list. If you know anything at all about autism, you know these kids like to have everything planned out. No surprises, no guesswork. My wife's background is accounting and finance. We showed up at Walt Disney World with an Excel spreadsheet. Any list people in the room? Prioritize your list. Color code your list. Make a copy of the list in case you lose the list. You put stuff on your list that you've already done so you can check it off the list. It's none of my business, but you should probably talk to somebody. We packed our bags, we had our list. We took off, we got to Orlando, Florida, 4 hours ahead of our luggage. Not a big deal, lots to see, lots to do, we went exploring. Did a little reconnaissance mission for Josh Brown's big adventure. Back in the hotel room, it's 8:30, the bags finally show up. We unpack, we settle in, and we go to bed. We're not tired, we're just anxious to get the next day started. Bright and early the next morning, we got up. I said, Josh Brown, where are we eating breakfast? He said, Dad, we're eating in this hotel. We're going to ease you into this. No lines, no trams. He's a smart boy. He knows his dad very well. Out the door, down the escalators, and I'm going to make a confession. I told Lisa that I wouldn't work on this trip. I did not promise her that I wouldn't pay attention to what's happening at Disney. I'm in the people business. My clients are in the people business. I'm at the customer service mecca of the entire universe. I want to know how they do what they do. How do they make you feel so special? How do they draw you in and create magic over and over again? How do they get so much money out of your wallet and make you feel good about it? So my radar's up, I'm paying attention. We get down to the restaurant and the hostess greets us, giant smile, welcome Brown family, we're so glad that you're here. We have a table just for you. Now I'm making mental notes, giant smile, that's brilliant. Brown family, don't we love the sound of our own name? Table just for us, how special. She takes us to our table, hands us menus and says, Brown family, may I be the first to wish you a magical day. You people, that's brilliant. She leaves, the waitress comes over. Waitress has no expression. In fact, she looks a little ticked off. She comes over and looks at my wife and she says, can I get you something to drink? And Lisa says, you can, but I need to tell you my son's on a very special diet. Lots he can have and lots that he can't have. And before Lisa could say another word, the waitress put her hand in my wife's face and said, ma'am, I need to stop you right there. I'm not going to be able to take your order. You're going to need to speak to the executive chef. And she disappeared. And now I'm ticked off. I've got a boatload of money wrapped up in this trip. I have some expectations. Smiling is one of them. If you could whistle while you work, I'd greatly appreciate that a lot. In fact, if you could hum It's a Small World, that'd be terrific. And Lisa was looking at me. Lisa knew I was ticked off. And she leaned over and said, let me handle this. I don't need Captain Freakout to make an appearance right now. Don't ruin Josh's vacation on day one. I kept my mouth shut, something that's very hard for me to do. From the back of the restaurant, the executive chef, easy to spot, big white coat, giant Chef Boyardee hat. She comes out, she gets to our table, she looks right at Josh Brown and she says, good morning, sunshine, how are you? And Josh lowered his head and he said, good morning. She said, my name is B. I understand somebody's on a special diet. How can I help? She takes a notebook out and she starts writing down everything that Lisa says he can have and everything that he can't. And then she starts asking questions. The great ones always ask brilliant questions. Tell me about his diet. What's in that? How do you make that? Where do you get it? Most important question, what's his favorite? She gets done, she puts her notebook away and she says, okay, sunshine, what's for breakfast? Apple pancakes, please. That's his favorite. Sunshine, I'm so sorry. I don't have the ingredients. Mom told me how to make them, but I don't have the stuff. How about some bacon and eggs and some special toast? He nodded. She left. Miss Personality came back and took the rest of our order. We ate. We left. We were completely satisfied. There's an important point I want to make about being satisfied. I have a great friend. Her name is Kelly Swanson. She says, nobody notices normal. Nobody notices normal. Nobody notices when the people we serve are satisfied. Satisfaction doesn't even get us a ticket to the dance anymore. Satisfaction is code for ordinary. And yet, what do most organizations chase? Satisfaction, customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, vendor satisfaction. Listen, satisfaction makes us like everybody else. Don't you want enthusiastic ambassadors for your brand? Don't you want unpaid spokespeople telling your story better than you ever could? Satisfaction, give me a break. Mick Jagger's been chasing it his whole life. He can't find it. Day 2 at Disney. Josh Brown, where are we eating breakfast? Dad, I want to go see Aunt Bee. Who? I looked at Lisa and she said, B, the executive chef, B-E-A. He said, Dad, I want to go see Aunt Bee. I said, brother, we've got a spreadsheet. We're supposed to go somewhere else. He said, Dad, I want to go see Aunt Bee. Guess where we went? Out the door, down the escalators. Hostess greets us, giant smile. Welcome back, Brown family. No reservation, no problem. We have a table just for you. I'm sure you do. She takes us to the exact same table we were at the day before. Guess who's working our section? That's right, and she still hadn't got the memo. I mean, don't you think during onboarding somebody would tell her she works at the happiest place on earth? No clue. In fact, she saw that it was us, didn't even come to the table, stopped in her tracks and went to the back of the restaurant. And from the back of the restaurant, Aunt Bee, making a beeline out to our table. She said, good morning, sunshine, to which I promptly said, good morning. She said, I'm not talking to you. Good morning, sunshine, what's for breakfast? Apple pancakes, please. You got it, sweetheart, coming right up. Whoa, time out, Aunt Bee. Do you remember us from yesterday? Yes, sir, I do. Aunt Bee, yesterday you didn't. Sir, why are you calling me Aunt Bee? It's a fair question. Sorry, B, yesterday you didn't have the stuff. True. Today you do? Yes. Where did you get it? The store. So you sent someone to the store? No, sir. I stopped on my way home last night. We have them all over Florida. Anybody can go. I looked at her and I asked her probably the dumbest question I've ever asked anybody, and I've asked a lot. I looked at her and I said, B, why would you do that? Profound answer. I thought that's what he wanted. Let me make a note. Give the people we serve what they want or need, whether we have it or not. Ball game. Guess where we ate every day for 8 days? Listen, when those apple pancakes shaped like mouse ears were slid under my boy's face, from that day to this, I've never seen him smile the way he smiled that day. When we left, we bought a card. Josh Brown signed it. Mom and Dad put money in it. When we got home, we wrote our bosses a letter and we raved about our experience. You know, there's only 2 times people talk about us: when we exceed their expectations or miss them completely. And guess when they like to talk about you the most? Oh, you better believe it. Man, you drop the ball, you miss the mark, they're going to tweet that little gem out to the whole world. We bought another card. Josh Brown signed it. Mom and Dad put money in it. We have bought her birthday presents, Christmas. Disney is still costing me a fortune. But leaders, isn't it true? Isn't it true? We'll pay a premium. We'll pay a premium for somebody who reaches beyond what is required to do the remarkable. We'll pay a premium for somebody who doesn't get caught up in the blame game. You know, B could have started blaming other people. She could have blamed another department. She could have blamed the customer. Have you ever gotten mad at the people you serve? It's cool, they're not here. Isn't it amazing? Sometimes we get irritated with the very people who allow us to pay our home mortgages. See, she could have started pointing the finger and playing victim. She could have blamed the customer and said, why don't they read the menu? But she asked a much better question. She raised her hand and said, what can I do with what I have to create a better outcome? Listen, we'll pay a premium for that. But in the absence of it, we will be commoditized and compete on price every single time. When Josh was a little boy, we sat in a school conference room. He was 5. Lisa and I were scared young parents, and we knew what they were going to tell us, but we had not yet said it out loud. Big mahogany table, doctors on one side, teachers on the other. And a doctor spoke first. Mr. and Mrs. Brown, your son has autism. You need to ready yourself for the road ahead. It's going to be a steep climb. There's some things you need to understand about Joshua. He's uneducable in many ways. He will not learn like the other children. Most likely, your son will not graduate high school. If he does, he will get a special education diploma. There'll be an asterisk by his name. Friends, we need to be really careful of the vision we cast for the people in our lives. People will live up to or down to the vision that you cast for them. I remember looking at Lisa and the tears were streaming down her face, giant teardrops landing on the papers in her lap, and I became angry. As a father, I'm embarrassed to tell you this, but I immediately started thinking about everything Josh wasn't going to do, the life he wasn't going to live, the one that I vicariously wanted to live through that boy had just vanished. He wasn't going to be the star Little League shortstop like his dad was. He wasn't going to be the star quarterback and captain of the high school football team like his dad was not. And while I sat there having a pity party of one, I looked back and the teardrops were gone. And thankfully, moms get a little something more than dads. Natural-born leaders with natural-born vision, especially when it comes to their babies. She sees that boy not as he is, but as he can be, which is the number one job of leadership and parenting and friendship. Listen, she sees that boy for all the hope and promise that was placed in him at birth, and then she did what leaders do. She took the storyline that life was trying to give us, and she started to rewrite it. I am amazed at how many people get up every single day of their lives, and they take the storyline that life gives them, and they walk it out as their truth, never giving one single consideration to the fact that the pen is in their hands. Oh, they take the storyline that a pandemic gives them. They take the storyline that a doctor gives them, the storyline that someone else's opinion gives them, and they own it as their own reality. You see, I watched as this leader with the title of mother took that storyline and she started to craft a new vision. She looked at her son and she said, "You cover your ears. Don't you listen to him." I heard what he said, "Babe, that's not your destiny. You keep your eyes right here. Mom's got a different plan for you." And for 18 years, I've had the privilege and the honor of watching a leader with the title of mother do her work. And it's amazing when you have a compelling vision for your life and for your business, the resources start to show up. Everything that the rest of the world couldn't get done during a pandemic, you got done. You showed up every single day, essential, heroic, doing what you do. This sanctuary called our home became ever so important during the past 18 months. It became our home office. It became a classroom. It became our safe place. You see, so many people take the storyline and they forget they have the pen. Listen, we watched as teachers, tutors, guides, mentors, and coaches have flowed into this kid's life. And in May of 2016, we were invited to a graduation ceremony. 300 kids would graduate from Gallatin High School, Gallatin, Tennessee. 300 kids. Mom and I, we were there. We were in the upper deck. We watched as 300 kids walked through that door. We were only looking for one. And we saw him. 6 feet tall. His cap was crooked. We knew he was ours. He marched in and he found his seat. And before he sat down, he found his dad. He gave me a nod. And they started calling names. 300 names were called that night. 300. We heard one name the whole night. Joshua Douglas Brown. And when that kid stood up, a chill ran down my spine. I saw a young man stand up with whom I was unfamiliar. Young man stood up and he put his shoulders back and his chin up. And he started marching to that stage with confidence and purpose, bordering on swagger as he made his way to the stage. Mom and I made our way from the upper deck. We were standing just off stage, cameras locked and loaded to capture the moment when his foot hit the stage. And when his foot hit the stage, I heard the voice of my father. My father, who used to tell me when I was a boy, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. All that matters is what you believe. You see, the doctors didn't think my boy could learn. Teachers didn't think he would graduate. But as he stepped on that stage and grabbed those honors cords draped around his neck, we were taking pictures and video. It was a powerful moment for Mom and I. He marched across that stage and he got his diploma. And that's when I heard my father. Doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, all that matters is what you believe. You see, they weren't there for the late night study sessions. They weren't there when mother and son couldn't be in the same room together. You see, as leaders, when we're drawing out potential in people, they don't always like us in the process. You see, they weren't there when my son put his head in his hands and said, "Why doesn't my brain work?" And a leader with the title of mother said, "Your brain's just fine, sweetheart. It takes a little more work to be special." He marched across that stage and he walked down the stairs. I put my arms out to hug him and he walked by me to hug his mother. As he should. Driving home, I could see his face in the rearview mirror. He was holding his diploma and he was smiling, which is rare. At the dinner table, he's still wearing his cap and gown and holding his diploma. And he pulled it down just slightly and he looked at me and he said, "I did good, didn't I?" I said, "You did better than good, brother. You knocked it out of the park. Your mom and I love you so much and we're so proud of you. To reward you, we'll take you anywhere you want to go in the whole world." "Dad, I want to go see Aunt B." "You're kidding me." So in May of 2016, the email started flying between Josh and Aunt B. You see, they'd stayed connected for nearly 10 years. Because of one moment in time when a leader stood up and said, "What can I do with what I have?" They had stayed connected all of those years, and they planned the perfect reunion. In fact, we called it the reunion tour of 2016. And we went back to Orlando for another 8 days. July of 2016, which was a mistake. The average temperature in Orlando in July is 478 degrees. But we went back for another 8 days, and on Wednesday, Hollywood and Vine restaurant, lunchtime, hundreds of people waiting to get in this place. Even by Disney standards, it was a lot of people. I made my way through the crowd to get to the young man at the host stand. When I got to the host stand, I said, "3 for lunch." He said, "Yes, sir. What name is that reservation under?" I said, we don't have a reservation." He said, "Well, you're not getting in here. You see all the people, don't you?" I said, "I do." He said, "It's a meet and greet day. Handy Manny is here." I do not know who that is, but apparently he's very popular. I said, "Look, man, we've got to get in there. We're here to see Chef B." And he said, "Sir, I'm sorry." I said, "Dude, I'll give you everything I've got in my wallet." And he said, "Sir, how much do you have in your wallet?" And he disappeared inside. He came back a few minutes later with one of those restaurant pagers with the lights on it. And he said, "Here's the deal. 45 minutes to get you in the door. You will not get a table. You will not get to eat, but you can say hello to your friend." I said, "We'll take it." He said, "I still need a name." I said, "Tell her it's Josh Brown, and he's here for apple pancakes." He smiled as he wrote it down. I could see the light bulb go off. We went and sat down with the other 10,000 people, and not 2 seconds after we sat down, this other little Disney guy shows up. He looked very official, had an earpiece, looked like Disney CIA. "You the Apple Pancakes family?" I said, "We go by the Apple Pancakes gang, thank you." "You must be Josh Brown." "My name's Mike. It's a pleasure to meet you. You're famous around here. Please follow me." And this guy starts escorting us past everyone. And at first we were embarrassed by the treatment, but about halfway there we caught our stride. You know what I'm talking about. When we crossed that line from confidence to arrogance, that razor-thin line, leaders, listen to me, that razor-thin line, we start saying things like, "I've arrived, I've paid my dues, I made it." That's when we stop learning, that's when we stop growing. And listen, the people on your team expect you to be well-fed so that you can lead them well. See, what I've learned is that people never leave organizations, they always leave leaders. And when we can't give them something we don't have, they go somewhere where they can get it. We're walking past all these people, and we get to the front door, and it's like everybody disappeared. And we walked in, and there was our old friend, Aunt B, standing there with her arms open, and this son of mine, who does not show much affection, does not like people in his space, completely built for social distancing, walked up to this woman and fell into her arms. They hugged for what felt like an hour. It was powerful to watch our boy do that. And then my business brain kicked in. And I said, "How do you do that? How do you do that? How do you own a moment in time so fully and completely that it transcends special needs, race, religion, gender, and every other label we like to slap on each other? How do you do that? How do you own this space so fully and completely that it transcends a decade and feels like yesterday?" Listen, you want to take the people in your life places they've never been? Starts right here in this moment. Because if you don't own this space, someone else will. You see, there's competition for every relationship in our life. There's competition for the minds of our children, for our spouse, our significant other, for every employee, for every customer. And when we don't own this little space right here, we leave the door open for somebody to take them from us. We sat with Aunt B and we ate. We spent 2.5 hours with her. And she told us her apple pancake story. She said, Mr. and Mrs. Brown, when you were here in 2007, I didn't know anything about autism. From that day to this, I've not stopped learning about the effects of nutrition on kids like Josh. You've made me better at what I love to do. Thank you. Stunned. She said, Mr. and Mrs. Brown, when you were here in 2007, we didn't have a special dietary meal program for kids like Josh. After you left, we went back to work. We got back in the box, and we created a new framework for our special dietary meal program. And in 2016, we'll serve over 1 million kids like Josh. Thank you for what you've done for our business. You see, we always think influence is a one-way street. It is always a two-way street. Influencing and being influenced 24/7, 365. The sad truth is we give very little thought to what lingers after we leave. We give very little thought to what we leave behind after we hang up the phone or push send, or leave these moments where we connected or didn't. Mr. and Mrs. Brown, this is how I train my chefs. It's the gold standard. We call it the apple pancakes experience. And I was so overwhelmed in that moment thinking I should trademark this before they do. It was a powerful moment to know what Josh had left behind for Aunt B. Aunt B will always be a permanent member of our family. And when Josh got done with high school, he went on to college. And when that boy got done with college, we said, what's next? He said, I want to go to Disney. I want to live there. And in July of 2019, the Brown family packed everything they owned, and they moved to Orlando, Florida, which proves my point. Once you go to Disney, eventually everything you own ends up in Orlando, Florida. Because of one moment in time. Because of one moment in time when a leader stood up and said, what can I do to serve this child? You see, we underestimate the power of these moments. We underestimate the power of this season that we've been in, this season called COVID. This season where we had choices to make, and it is a season. Don't you buy into this idea that it's a new normal. It is not. It's a season. And seasons come and seasons go. And the question is, will we come out of this season better or worse? You see, I know how you showed up. I know what you did every single day. You see, we have a choice in this season to use it as leverage to get better, or we can just hunker down and hold on like most people. But that's not you. You see, you had the vision to show up every single day and serve people, to figure out how to get it done. When people said there was no way, you found a way. You see, that's what optimism will do for you. You see, I learned about optimism from my first mentor in business. I was blessed to have a mentor in my life that changed my life. You see, from age 13 to 16, I went through a really dark period in my life. I was betrayed by an adult that I trusted very much, and life got complicated. Life got ugly, spiraling out of control. By the time I was in my early 20s, I lived in my car. I'd burned every bridge that I walked across back then. I quit school in the 9th grade. I have no college training. Burning bridges, breaking promises, hanging around the wrong people, developing bad habits. And there I sat in my car, dragging that 13-year-old kid everywhere I went and dumping him on everybody in my path. I used him as an excuse for not doing well. I used him as a reason to not get better. I played the victim. And there I sat in the front seat of my car, that 13-year-old kid sitting right next to me, contemplating life. Should I stay or should I go? The kid tried to convince me to check out, but I was too chicken to do it. So if I was going to stay, I had to figure out how to survive. And that's when I met a man named David, a crusty old sales guy from South Texas. Pulled me in, he took me under his wing, and he taught me how to sell. He gave me a gift that changed my life financially forever. But not only did he teach me how to sell, he taught me how to see. He taught me how to see. He took the storyline that a 13-year-old kid was dragging around and he started to rewrite it. He was the first person who believed in me. And it wasn't easy. Because every time I missed the mark, every time I didn't hit my numbers, I'd grab that 13-year-old kid and I'd dump him all over David. And one day David had had enough. And he looked at me and he said, son, I don't want to hear that story again. You've told me that story so many times, I could probably tell it better than you. You told me that you wanted to go someplace new, but all you talk about is where you've been. He said, I want to tell you something, son. The past is a place of reference, not a place of residence. He said, if you want to go there, you're going to go by yourself. If you want to go somewhere new, I will take you. And this guy kept dripping on me, and he kept working on me. And this guy became a boss and a leader and a friend and a mentor. He became like a second father to me. When I look in the mirror, he's one of the first faces I see next to my own dad. I'll never forget the day he called me and said he had cancer. Stage 4, KB, it's in my lungs, my throat, my windpipe. Doc says I should get a haircut, it'll be my last. He's given me 6 months to live. I said, 6 months to live, what are you going to do? He said, I'm moving in with my mother-in-law. That'll be the longest 6 months of my life. He had a wry sense of humor, and I got angry when he said it. I said, this isn't a time for jokes, man. What are you going to do? He said, I'm going to go to work on me, Kevin. Lung cancer doesn't just happen. I did this. I got cocky. I got arrogant, thought the rules didn't apply to me. I'm going to go to work on me. I think I can beat it, the eternal optimist. I said, what can I do? He said, pray. So I did. 10 years after a 6-month diagnosis, we're sitting on his patio in South Texas. He'd beaten cancer 4 times in 10 years. He had letters from 3 doctors who said the cancer's gone. We don't know where it went. It was back for a 5th time. Back with a vengeance. I was living in Nashville, Tennessee by then. He was still here in Texas. He called me. He said, KB, it's back, and I'm tired. I'd like to see you before I go. I packed in 5 minutes. Made a 14-hour trip in 12. David didn't have any boys. He had 2 girls. I remember walking through the front door, and Stacy was on one side and Shelley was on the other. And the guy in the recliner didn't look like my friend. But I recognized his voice. You see, friends, we never, ever forget the voice of influence in our lives. We never, ever forget the voice that shows up in the storm and brings calm to chaos. We never, ever forget the people who show up and they give us more than we deserve. The people who show up and they pour unselfishly into us. We never forget that voice. He looked up over his glasses at me and he said, my boy's home. Now all my kids are here. They helped him out of the chair and he met me right here in the middle of the living room floor and he put his arms around me, he squeezed me tight. I could feel his whiskers on my cheek. They were wet as he started to cry. He said, let's go outside for a minute, son. I want to talk to you. We went outside and we sat on the patio and we sipped sweet tea and other things. We talked about old times. We laughed. We cried. 2 hours went just like that. And then the conversation got serious. He reached over to grab my arm and he missed. He actually grabbed my foot. He was a proud man. He would never want me to know that he wasn't aiming for my foot. So he just held my foot. And then he looked at me and he said, I'm proud of you, son. I'm really proud of you. Leaders, those are the most powerful words on planet Earth next to I love you. And we never, ever outgrow the need to hear them. He said, I'm proud of you, son. You've come a long way. You've come a long way from that 13-year-old kid. You've got a great career, a beautiful family. That son of yours is something special. I said, yeah, I know, I made it. He said, I didn't say you made it. He said, I'm going to tell you something, son. Don't you ever say that again. As long as there's a breath in your body, you've got work to do. As long as there's a breath in your body, there's a version of you that you haven't even met yet, a version that the rest of the world desperately needs. And when he said those words, he looked away and the tears started streaming down his face. I had never seen him cry before that day. I said, what's wrong, man? He said, I'm scared, dude. I'm really scared. I said, come on, man, you don't have to be afraid to die. He looked at me and he said, I'm not afraid to die. Not for 1 minute am I afraid to die, but I'm scared to death, son, that after 64 years, I never really lived. I'm scared to death, son, that after 64 years, nobody will even know I was here. And those words broke my heart. This guy not only changed my life, he saved it. And I came here to tell you what I told my best friend that day. And this is my most sincere belief. I believe that when we show up in this space right here, the people who show up in it do not happen by accident. In fact, I think they come quite by assignment. And it has little to do with what we do for a living. You see, here's what I've learned. People don't come to us for what we do. They don't come to you for what you do. They come to you for who you are. They come to you to get a little piece of something they can't get anywhere else. And the only way that you can honor them is to show up in this moment and bless them with your best self. I really just came to ask you 2 questions. Number 1, can you look in the mirror and see the faces of the people who make you better? Can you see the faces of the people who poured into you and made you better than you could have ever been on your own? If you can see those faces in the mirror before your head hits the pillow tonight, you should thank one of them before you can't. But friends, here's the real question. Who looks in the mirror and sees your face? Who looks in the mirror and says, I'm better because you showed up? I'm better because you smiled even though you didn't feel like it because you're dealing with your own garbage. I'm better because you took the time to hear my story even though you didn't want to. I'm better because you didn't blow through this moment to get to something obviously more important than me. You see, the truth is we don't know what we don't know. The next person that shows up, we don't know the diagnosis they just got. We don't know the crisis that they're going through in their life. We don't know that they didn't just put their 13-year-old kid in rehab for the third time and they're at the end of their rope. We think we know why they're there, but we don't. And the only way we can truly find out is to invest in this moment with them and connect at the cellular level here, not here. John Maxwell says when we die, they'll summarize our life in one sentence and carve it in a piece of stone. Doesn't it make sense for you to decide what they're going to write on your rock? Don't leave it to the people you leave behind. They will get emotional and mess it up. They'll put stupid stuff on there. I've seen it. You decide the through line for your life and then get up every day for the rest of it and walk it out. Help people with no strings attached. Create an exceptional experience for the people in your life. Take responsibility for your life and see life in each other through the beautiful lens of optimism. In my book, that spells hero. And from where I sit, I see a whole room full of heroes right now. We're honored and blessed that you show up every single day and do what you do. I have a sign in my office that says, always be yourself, unless you can be Batman. And then you should always be Batman. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kevin Brown. It's been an honor to be in your space today. Thank you all very much for what you do. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you.